2018 has come to a close, and I have seen many movies this year, and it is time to break down what were my top favorite films of this year. And I don't go by which films were the most critically acclaimed or the most groundbreaking in terms of positive ratings or box office numbers. The films that I list are the ones that resonated the most with me. Some of the films on my list might be some of your least favorite films of the year. Some of them weren't loved by critics. It's a mixed bag, but each of the films I'm about to list have at least one of the three things I look for in my favorite films of the year, and that is quality, rewatchability, and enjoyment level. Some of these films have all three of those things, and some of them only have really one of them. But in breaking down my list and sorting through all of the films this year, you are about to hear what were my top favorites. In looking through my list, 2018 was a pretty strong year, and so it was a lot harder to break it down into my top 10. So before we get to my top 10, I'm going to list my 5 honorable mentions. And these honorable mentions are Life of the Party, Incredibles 2, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Searching, and Avengers Infinity War. I enjoyed all of these films and I highly recommend all of them, but they didn't quite make my top 10 list. And now here are my top 10 favorite films of 2018, and in the number 10 spot, we have Aquaman. Even though this movie had a lot of script issues and pretty campy dialogue, I have already seen the movie twice, and it really stands out in terms of its visuals, the spectacle of everything. The entertainment value was on point for this film. I had a really good time. I loved the two leads, and I loved the overall presentation of this film despite its flaws with the script. I'm excited for a sequel, and I really just had a lot of fun with this movie. And in my number 9 spot, we have Mamma Mia 2, which was my biggest surprise of this year in terms of all of the films I've seen. I did not like the first film at all. I had a completely opposite effect with this film. It has a much better script. The music was interjected amazingly. I loved the soundtrack. I loved the characters. I had such a happy, great time with this film, and it shocked me. And I still enjoy it. It's such a heartwarming experience to this day. In my number 8 spot, we have Boy Erased, and this film hit really close to home in many areas. It is such an intense, dramatic telling with a very important story that needs to be shared. I thought the performances were fantastic. The film can get very dark, but I appreciated the message it was telling. It did not feel melodramatic, and it made such a powerful impact on me. In my number 7 spot, we have A Quiet Place. I continue to love this film even more as I watch it. I think that it is such an original, brilliant cinematic concept and story told in a way that we've never seen before. I give high props to John Krasinski for being such a standout director, with this being his directorial debut, and Emily Blunt gives an award-winning performance. I think this is such a thrilling film, and one of the best films I've seen all year. I loved A Quiet Place. In my number 6 spot, we have A Simple Favor, and oh my god, the rewatchability on this film is astounding. Even though the ending is still very sloppy in my eyes, I loved A Simple Favor. It is so easy to just sit at home with a cocktail and soak in all of the quick wittiness and the bitchiness that we get between these two characters. Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively have probably the best on-screen chemistry I've seen between two people all year. If I think about it, they're at least in my top few favorite duos I've seen on screen this year. Simple Favor was so deliciously entertaining, and I had a hell of a great time. And now we're reaching my top 5, and in my number 5 spot, probably my most controversial film I will have on this list to most people is Solo, A Star Wars Story. One film that I feel has been completely and unfairly received by critics and audiences. And I feel like the greatest reason this movie honestly failed was because of the bad taste that people had in their mouth after seeing The Last Jedi. All that aside, I had a hell of a good time with Solo. I think it is such a fun, small Star Wars story. I thought that Alden Ehrenreich did a perfectly good job as Han Solo, as long as you stop comparing him to Harrison Ford. If you lose that altogether, his performance was perfectly fine. I thought all of the characters, for the most part, were good. I thought the action was fun. It was a very entertaining film. It kept me engaged from start to finish, and I thought the pacing worked out great. I don't get the hate for this movie. I greatly enjoyed it, and that's why it's where it is on my list. And in my number 4 spot, we have Bohemian Rhapsody, and in my perfect world, I would pick this one for Best Picture at the Oscars, considering the ones that are in the race. All that aside, I was blown away by Bohemian Rhapsody. It has probably the best finale and final scene of any film I have seen this year. It gave such a tremendously moving performance by Rami Malek. This movie made my heart soar. It was engaging. It was heartwarming. I personally loved that this film was a crowd pleaser with some really moving moments, engaging performances, fantastic music, and I can't talk up this film enough. Everybody needs to see this. And in my number 3 spot, we have Mary Poppins Returns, and that is where nostalgia definitely plays the biggest part in why this movie resonated with me so much. I've seen it twice now, and it is such a darling, feel-good, happy, enjoyable adventure with a trip down memory lane that pulls at all the right heartstrings. Emily Blunt gives an amazing performance as Mary Poppins to where I completely bought her in the role. She was hands down the best part of the movie. She never faltered in my eyes, and I completely got lost in her. It pulled me back into the magic, and I felt that they treated the source material with respect and were able to take us on yet another adventure with Mary Poppins that is almost just as lovable and enjoyable as its first one. And in my number 2 spot is Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, another controversial movie this year. I am sorry to say that this film created such a great divide in the fans of the Harry Potter franchise, and it really breaks my heart. I understand some of the reasons for it, but overall, I got a lot out of this movie. It was very intricately layered. I thought the story expanded itself in so many ways that I feel will take the series off in greater directions. The first movie was a great starting point, but I loved this movie really got its feet wet and really placed the pieces on the game board as to why this new series in the Harry Potter wizarding world was created. I understand why some people may have been lost with this film, but fortunately it did not lose me. It sucked me that much more into this world, which I think was ultimately its desire, and it won me over, and that's why it's so high up on my list. I enjoyed the hell out of Fantastic Beasts. And we are reaching my number 1 film of the year, everyone. This film has resonated so strongly with me all year. It was listed on my video of my favorite films halfway through the year when I uploaded that back in July. There are films that have come close to passing it, but ultimately when breaking down this list, there is one film that resonated with me the most, that pulled at my heart, that won a piece of my heart, made me feel so uplifted and so incredibly happy. And that film is, without a doubt, Love, Simon. Probably one of the greatest LGBT films I have ever seen in my life. Everybody needs to see this movie. It is such a beautifully heartwarming love story. It doesn't go down a path that is very melodramatic or overly sad. We have enough of that in this world, and that is what I loved about this film, is that you don't need to be sucked into anything remotely negative. I did connect with it on a personal note when looking back on when I first came out as a gay man. This movie had so much heart. It was also really funny, perfectly paced, with the greatest payoff in a film, and one of the best finales I've seen in film all year. This movie struck a chord with me. It struck all the chords with me, and that is why it needs to be seen by more people. I wish more people saw it in theaters, so I'm hoping that it can establish more of a cult following after. I love Simon so much, and that is why it has rightfully earned my place as my favorite film I have seen in 2018. Talk about one hell of a great year. I had a blast, and I'm so excited for what 2019 has in store. There's gonna be way many more films. I would love to hear your 10 favorite films this year, so feel free to share them down below. I hope you go and check out a few of these films if you haven't so already. Thank you all for watching, and I look forward to 2019. And until next time, I'm Ryan Boehme, signing off. Bye, everyone.